Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Good evening. You made it to the Eugene Cannabis TV show. We have a very special guest tonight that's really fulfilling the purpose of our show. Excuse me, our show, which is education about cannabis and everything related to it. We have Troy, who has developed a scale for
basically clarifying, classifying, and communicating the effects of marijuana.
And it's for medical patients, and Troy's going to explain it to us, but it's incredible. We need to figure out which medicines are best for what ailments for medical marijuana patients. And anyway, Troy, go ahead and explain it to us, please, because you look at it and it's just, I know I'm speaking for myself. When I looked at it, I think, what?
Right.
So it looks kind of confusing, but I want you to take a minute to really listen and then understand it, and it's brilliant. And so I really appreciate Troy coming in, and I want to do everything I can to help him promote his idea here.
Well, thank you very much for having me on and having M-Scale on. One of the biggest things that we saw is kind of a barrier to people taking marijuana seriously. In fact, one of the barriers to people being able to execute the law, specifically here in Oregon, but in other states as well, is that it's mandated that medical marijuana be treated as other medicines. And for the most part, people don't treat it that way. And so one of the things that we saw in some of the different backgrounds that I've had, one of the things we were able to do is bring some of the best practices of some other industries into medical marijuana to help communicate what medicinal growers are doing to solve patient problems. And so one of the things that M-Scale took on was trying to how do we basically clarify and classify and then communicate what medicinal growers are doing to solve problems. And so when you start looking at medicinal research in the universities, there were a lot of parallels there. A lot of the tools that physicians use with patients, there were a lot of parallels there. And so we kind of put together, amongst those things and some other things, M-Scale. And so M-Scale is basically a way to be able to communicate the effects of marijuana for medicinal purposes. And that's basically, that's all it is. It's just a language that we can all talk about. What it does is it allows us to be able to have physicians understand the effects of marijuana because it is an effects communication. And so that allows them to kind of step around words that maybe they're not quite so familiar with or quite so comfortable with and get to what the medicine does. And for patients, it allows the patients to be able to come in and say, you know, doc, take me seriously because these are the medical conditions or these are the health concerns that I have, and I would like you to be able to see them and treat me like a person, not necessarily a stoner, right? Mm-hmm. Which then allows growers who are solving the problems to develop their medicines and communicate them to patients and dispensers when they're legal here or in legal dispensaries in other states, and tell you what they have. Okay, and then on the other side is that at the high level from the medicinal side, from the medicine and doctor side, it allows them to be able to see a system that works, that's not being mandated, but that people are participating in to solve their own issues, and for legislators to be able to see, okay, well, what is this? Because really what it comes down to is, people either don't understand or they don't want you to know that they understand because they fear the subject. And so one of the things that we're finding is if we give them a way to step past the, the word would be, but the stigma, I guess, whatever that actually is, and it allows them to be comfortable with the subject because they can relate to this. Because there are, I guess now 85 different cannabinoids present in medical marijuana, in marijuana itself. That means 80, plus factorial different combinations for this medication that also kind of boggles a lot of people because most medication has one major effect and then a bunch of side effects. But marijuana has a lot of effects, and the side effects to marijuana for any one patient often is just other effects of marijuana. And so within this realm, what we wanted to do is just communicate that in a way. So we basically started a basic language, taking some success principles that we got out of medicinal chemistry, employed them in here, and it allowed us to be able to communicate with patients. Now, patients can tell you what they're looking for. Doctors can understand inherently because we use a lot of tools that they already have. We can get into that a little bit more later, but they can now use this tool because they understand it. They use it in pain scales. They use it at different institutes. They already know these tools. And then you have growers who can communicate through this kind of process what they've got as far as a solution goes. You know, we can, you know, depending on what you want to talk about today, but, you know, we can blow out different aspects, but now we have everybody communicating in a way that people can trust because they can understand it.
Okay. Interesting. So that's great to get all three people onto the same playing field, so to speak, so they can communicate about what they're talking. That's excellent. Wow. Right.
Well, and you need them. You need you need physicians being able to trust this medication so they can turn their patients into it. We can cover that later, but we have a patient outcome study that looks at the before and after effects and visits and costs. And, you know, we have patients that are reducing their toll on the system, on the state-based insurance, by hundreds of thousands of dollars. In fact, I have one patient that we've done that she's kind of released her information publicly, more than $1 million in savings to the Oregon Health Plan. And so that's one patient. Now I know with Measure 74, which, you know, hopefully people pass here in the next.
That's right. In fact, when this segment is shown, actually, it'll be shown on the day after the election. So when this show is shown, we know the results.
Oh, okay. that would be great.
But I still put the sign out and still wearing the shirt. And
outstanding.
By the way, while I was speaking of 74, I came up with this thought a little earlier. So you're seeing this after the election. So if you helped on the campaign and it passed, thank you. Congratulations.
Definitely.
And if it failed and you didn't work on the campaign, live with yourself if you can.
Yeah, yeah. You know, there's a lot of people doing some really awesome work.
Oh, incredible. They're making phone bank calls. People are putting hours in on the phone just talking to people. And that's cold dialing. We've been in sales. I know what cold dooring and cold wall, and I know what that's like. And so it can be tough at times, but it's also rewarding. Oh. I've heard some of them talk about that they hook up with people that don't have any idea of the issue, and they're tickled to be able to talk to a patient to get an actual patient's perspective.
Oh, you know, we were 2 days ago, I guess we were down at Voter Power here in Eugene.
Yep.
Helping out with phone calls, and we had it was a great time. The guys there are just a really positive group and that kind of thing. But you know, talk about funny. You know, just funny. You think you're going like, oh, we're gonna have to make a bunch of phone calls, but actually it was a lot of fun. You know, and if it's too bad that this is running the day after, because all I could just say is just encourage people to get involved, because it is actually it's pretty rewarding, very rewarding, but it's also pretty energy. Positive, you know.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, I get the phone calls. Being the local normal chapter director, I get the calls because my phone number is on the internet as a contact number. So I get people calling, and how do I get a doctor? I have my card. How do I get medicine? You know.
Oh yeah.
And it's really fulfilling. I really enjoy that, being able to help people. You know. And I've talked to a lot of people that are like in my age that never thought they'd ever had anything to do with marijuana ever. And then they come up with an ailment, and then people have told them about it, and all of a sudden, not only using, but they're advocates.
Right. You know, we did a story with our. I live in Corvallis, and so we did a story with one of our reporters, and he was really hammering us. I mean, really hammering us, because we were talking about patients and the system and that kind of stuff, and he was really trying to find out where we call them the black hats, but where all the money and all this kind of stuff was. And so finally. We took him a bunch of different places, and he finally could start seeing and wrote a pretty extensive article. But one of the things that we told him is if you hang around this subject too long, you're going to become a fan. I mean, you're helping people, you know, yourself, and helping other people, to empowering them, and so this subject is just a really positive thing.
That's great. I was just looking at this little chart real quickly, and I thought of another way to maybe help people, help our audience maybe understand kind of what this part of this is about. There's this chart here saying it's a number chart going from one on the left, from active, it's a balance, an active, sedate. And I was thinking of, you know, there's different strains that we try, and some people, say, well, that stuff will just put you to sleep, and other people say, wow, that stuff there just got me pumped up like I was on speed,
Right.
And so different cannabises have different effects, and so that's what we're doing, is getting a scale to where that can be rated, along with many other factors. That's just one of the factors in the M scale thing, I think.
Right. You have a gradient scale 1 through 9, 5 in the middle, and then you have a discrete table of effects that basically you kind of added. So it's kind of like a combination number line and a periodic table. And so we try to make it number and color and letter simple, and we try to give people what's called a key, or kind of a really shorthand, so you don't have to read through a bunch of stuff to get it. And the nice thing is that once we start into this, people get it like this. And when they've got, say, one of their cards saying that, doc, this is what I'm looking for, they can inherently understand what they're talking about. And then to a grower, we can hand this and say, hey, this is what I think I'm going. And even if they're not on the M scale, they're not using it, they still inherently understand it. And vice versa, a grower can come back to a patient and say, these are the offerings that I have, and start putting together a medical program. Which then we can track and see the effectiveness, because the data is out there. And so now we just create a real basic situation so we could mine that information up, so people can stop doing the opinion versus opinion thing. Right. And the savings are there, the effects are there, and so what we're just trying to do is just kind of create a system that we can push information, and we want everybody to be able to participate on it.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great. Well, I need to wrap up this segment, but we're going to be right back, because we've just begun to talk about this, and it's fascinating. So we're going to be back here in a few minutes, and so you got time to go get that pencil and pad and paper that you didn't get earlier to take notes. You'll be seeing some references on the screen, contact information. Be ready for that, and call your neighbors and tell them to get on the tube and watch out for information. We're going to be right back, so stay tuned.
Hey, what's up everybody? Dude Grows. Let's break down enzymes. Everybody should use enzymes. Enzymes work great in hydroponics and soil. See left to right here, this is Hygrozyme. That's their liter, their gallon, like 35 a liter, 130 something a gallon. Expensive stuff, but works great. Sensozyme, Advanced Nutrients brand. Prozyme, Humboldt Nutrients. There's also a Canazyme, I think, from Canna, Multizyme, House and Garden. Enzymes are all designed to do the same thing, which is break down organics in soil, and also dead root matter. Hydroponics help prevent that brown root rot you can see in hydroponics with warmer water temperatures. If you're not running a hydroponic chiller and really controlling your hydroponic system, I would definitely be running enzymes just to have that insurance policy. Any system they'll work great in: NFT, deep water culture, flood and drain, dripping, etc. Now in soil, these are really beneficial because they break down organic matter, so to make it more plant available quicker. If you're growing in a really well enriched soil to start off in veg, you don't even need to use any nutrients for a little bit. You can use a nice enzyme that'll make everything really available to the plant and go from there. Now they also can be used in a situation for flushing. Before you're going to go to flush in soil or hydro, I'd run enzyme at a strong rate of maybe 10 to 15 mils per gallon for a day or two. Break everything down quicker to get your plant ripening off quicker. And if you don't want to use it all the time in hydro, due to some people have really high volume systems and just don't want to have to afford adding to this to their already expensive nutrient program, run it every other time. That'll help just benefit and again, taking care of dead root matter that's built up or other things that might cause an issue in your system. Other advantageous times to run it would be, peak veg, peak flowering, when your system's just really turboing and you want to have an extra product in there that's going to help that. You're adding extra nutrients, bloom boosters, guanos to soil, etc. This enzyme will really help break all that down. So again, this is a product I probably wouldn't garden without. I've heard that from other friends in the industry that have been around for a while. I would definitely pick some of this up and give it a try. Give it a trial if you can on some plants and not others. You should definitely see the difference. DudeGrows.com. Go get yourself some enzymes.
Well, welcome back, and we're talking to Troy about the M scale. Fascinating. A way to rate medical marijuana. It's a system so that a patient and a doctor and the grower can all communicate on the same level.
That's exactly what it is. You know, thanks for tuning back in. What we try to do is we try to break it down from the perspective of whoever's looking at it. We recognize that the most important perspective in your life is your own. And so what we did is we tried to develop a system that basically works from where you're at. So we don't ask doctors to try to become patients or patients to become doctors, or, you know, what we really want is a system that can communicate. And so it all kind of starts out with some basic surveys that we have, and one of which we just call the basic patient survey. You know, not too hard. It's a one-page survey that asks you some questions. What we typically do is, especially with patients who are looking to get their card but are having difficulty talking to their physician, or would just like to have something so people will take them seriously, we have this basic patient survey. And so on one side of that page is actually, and they're free for download at our website for everybody. All patients and all dispensary and all doctor stuff is free to everybody. On one side of it is just instructions, and so it kind of runs you through the M scale, and then gives you a quick little example of a trauma patient on the other side. On the flip side of that page is a 3-section questionnaire, and the very first part of this is your health concerns. And one of the reasons why we ask them to people to identify their health concerns is for 2 reasons. One, they're filling it out for themselves, and I'd like people to understand that the qualifying conditions in Oregon law are basically put together at one point in time. But recently, there was an attempt to add, for example, PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, to the list, and it was denied. Now, the country of Israel, use of medical marijuana is almost completely based on post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, it's the #1 spearhead, or at least, you know, the medical condition that they find the most relevant. So right now, what drives all of this is not necessarily medicine. It really is opinions that have just been successfully, you know, spoken or relayed. So one of the things that we ask people to do is identify what their health concern is. Now, even if they have qualifying conditions, a lot of people who have, I know I'll just pick one, but let's say just that they have cancer, may be dealing with trauma. So they qualify with cancer, but they're using it because of flashbacks, or because of anxiety attacks, or because of depression, or because of, well, the list is giant. So that's why that list there is big. And so what we're doing is we're collecting the data from patients on why are they using this medicine, okay? Because eventually this is going to be useful. The other part about there is that there's an other segment, and often other is just kind of a tertiary, you know, other. But on this particular form, it's the one place where you have the ability to write in your personal message. So I was working with a fellow recently here who was stabbed in the back 6 times. Okay, so he did pain, and he did, okay, and there's a lot of negative talk around chronic pain unless you have it. And so the fact that he put, I was stabbed in the back 6 times, helped his physician take him seriously. Okay, it just brought that down to home. So once we've done that, you've got kind of a good little picture of what this patient is dealing with. Then we ask you kind of what's called, in other terms, like a magic wand question. So if you could just have your medicine either make you want to take a run, or put you out like you can't avoid going to sleep. So 1 is, you know, very active, and 9 is completely sedate, and 5 being the middle, which is neither. Where would it fall? And so what we find is most patients actually want something in the 5 to 1 range, because they still want to function. Now, most medicine right now is grown in the 6, 7, and 8 range, but most requested is in the 2, 3, and 4 range. So this also starts to begin a small demand schedule that we can work with growers and what strains to develop, because you've got these master gardeners who are creating solutions, but we might open their eyes to some of the strains, or some of the way they harvest, or those kinds of so we're starting to put a metric together, right? So let's say that person picks a 3. meaning that it's mildly uplifting, it's not going to be too much. And then what we ask them to do is to go through a list, it's called a discrete effects table, and that's the periodic table approach to this, and if you go onto our website there, you'll see it. And it just asks them to check off all of the things that they want their medication to do. Okay, so they can put one, they can put there's not 100, but they could put 10 or 15. And then once they've done that, we ask them to go back and tell us what the top 4 that they want. So now we've got a list of health conditions, an activity spectrum, and you have a discrete table of what you're trying to shoot for. So you take that number, and you take those 4 top effects, and you put them together, and that creates the M key. And then that's what you can then take that document, it's just a real simple form, into your physician, and they start to learn to take you a little more seriously. Mm-hmm. Now you can also take that to your grower, and you're telling them what you wanted at that point, but as a grower with experience and working with other patients and networking, you might say, hey, you know what, I see that you have fibromyalgia, and I know that this particular strain works, but now we're having that conversation. Mm-hmm. And so the basic patient survey is designed to just open up a really simple conversation. It's one-page simple, because I want physicians to understand that they're coming to you with medical marijuana questions, but they're still a patient. Mm-hmm. Okay? It also is real difficult to tell a person who wants a clear mind, for example, as one of their effects, that you're just trying to get high. Because one of the things that we find is that a lot of patients will, in their main medication for the day, don't want foggy head. They actually want to be able to focus and be able to get things done.
We've got a few minutes left. Could you kind of give us a rundown of and then hopefully our director can put the visuals up as you speak of each.
Sure. So we basically have the basic patient survey. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's just a one-pager. Mm-hmm. The dispensary survey works for kind of starting into kind of a real-world application, and that is we all have an active, or and most of us is during the day, so an AM/PM situation, unless you have a work schedule that changes that. But so we call that the active part of the day and the sedate part of the day. You need medicines for the day you're trying to function, and the part of the day that you're going to be going to sleep. Now, what mostly happens when you deal with the majority of the sedate strains is that patients end up suffering through the entire day because their medication is going to put them out, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we need to treat medical marijuana like medicine, and more importantly, that's not what you have to do. That's just what people think that they have to put up with. There are medications that will help you during the day, and there are even medications now that are coming out that have no euphoric effect. We call those a 5, right, because they're in the middle. Mm-hmm. But for AIDS patients who are looking at trying to get their appetite again, mm-hmm. right? So there are strains out there that will do that. So the dispensary survey starts to break this up, as you can kind of see on here, and you'll see on the graphic, is a morning and an afternoon, because we also deal with different health conditions in the morning than we do in the afternoon, unless we don't, and then you can put them for both. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side of this then is a little bit more of a questionnaire to start creating multiple M keys, or MX. It looks like that. That's the kind of the little, I guess you can see that. But so this is kind of our shorthand for what you're creating, and then you're filling in. We'll put a graphic up; it'll be easier. But you can start doing a morning and an afternoon and start opening people's minds. Now, the other thing is that marijuana has a little bit of a tendency to help people develop a tolerance. And so one of the things that you need to be able to do is have multiple medicines in the morning and multiple medicines in the evening. Not necessarily at the same time, but available. Mm-hmm. So we can switch back and forth as patients and keep the cost of our medication as far down as possible. Mm-hmm. And so strain name, there's lots of different strain names. There will be lots of different strains that fall into those different categories, mm-hmm. either be from harvesting and the chemistries that are involved there, or the fact that you're just using different genetics. Because basically we kind of educate people that if you have a medicine sitting in front of you, then 50% of what it's going to do is the genetics. But 50% of it, and a lot of times even more, is the environment that was exposed to, because the grower grew it the way that they did. And so we call that the kind of the signature grower environment. So what we want people to understand is that your grower can tune your medicine. And so as a patient, there's a lot of flexibility available in a really powerful medicine that most people are not even aware of. And so when we start talking about the lack of addictive effects and the fact that it uses the cannabinoid receptors in our brains and immune system and all that, that's just the beginning. We can actually, with information, tune medicines for patients, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, and it seems to me that the more data you collect, I mean, it just can't help but keep improving the whole system. It's like it's helping improving itself.
Exactly. Because we just, well, there's a longer story there, but chemistry went through this whole thing. They used to argue about how you used to name molecules. And then at one point, everybody in the world got together and said, this is how we're going to talk about chemistry. And that allowed researchers, i.e. the medicinal growers, to start standardizing how they communicated. And once they did that, the advancements in medicinal chemistry took off. Well,
that's great.
This is what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. Well, appreciate Troy coming, and I wanted a real quick note about the Cannabis Connection magazine that is available. Voter Power office on River Avenue. There, you can pick one up there, 687 River Avenue. This is a great publication, and just the articles, just reading the front, just reading the cover and going through the articles available, it's just, I mean, it's just incredible. These are things that are happening in Oregon. This is Pacific Oregon. It's called Oregon Cannabis Connection. VA relaxes stance on medical marijuana. ACLU sues Walmart. Oregon reclassified marijuana as medicine. So
awesome! It's a great magazine. Yeah.
So send in a note if you need our "Just Say No" pamphlet. Send in a note to the show, and we'll send it to you. So it's a Word document. So thanks again for Troy for coming in, and we'll hope he'll come back and see us again. And you folks, be sure to go back and see us again too. Thanks a lot.
Some call it the weed. Some call it marijuana. Some of them call it ganja. Never mind, legalize it.